we go. Is my presentation visible to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening based on your local time zone. And welcome to today's session. So today's we are going to talk about the supplier communication agents in Dynamic 365 Finance and Operation app, or you may call it as a Dynamic 365 AI ERP. As the session title suggests, we will more talk about the as-is process of very specific persona of the procurement people as well as the purchasing people. And then we'll also talk about the to-be processes, how that agent is going to help everyone in order to automate some of the mundane tasks. But before we go there, I would like to just quickly touch base our presence. I think many of you are aware that we are having a presence into three different areas. We as a user group, India Dynamic 365 and Power Community, we have very good presence as a subscriber on our YouTube channel. And I would highly recommend everyone to go and subscribe so that whenever we try to generate or create any sort of new content, you will be able to get some content, and we will also try to learn from your experiences and your learning. We do have a presence in Microsoft community portal as well, which we call as community.dynamics.com, where we have close to 381 users sign up. I would request you to go there and sign up for you as well. Then we do also have a presence on LinkedIn, because many times or most of the times we have seen that people, this LinkedIn thing gets more handy as compared to the others. So we do have a presence on LinkedIn as well. Again, I would highly recommend to follow that page so that you will see a notification as and when progress on the next set of journey. In terms of who we are, so my name is Rakesh Zage. I'm a Microsoft MVP as well as the fast track recognized architect from Microsoft. I'm here with my colleague Sukrut and Kizer, and we all three leads this particular user group called India Dynamics 365 and Power Community. And we try to focus more on the new aspects that Microsoft shipped as part of new product features. Nowadays, we always talk about Copilot and AI. That's where this journey is. But the idea is not to just to understand what product features provides, but also try to apply the critical thinking that we as a consultant, irrespective of any role that we play with our organization, be it functional, be it technical, be it architect, but also try to see where we can understand and where we can, apply that thought process. And then that is eventually going to help we as a community, as well as it is going to help Microsoft as well in order to, enhance the experience of the product features. There are standard announcements that we always typically go through it in order to maintain the decorum of the entire quorum. We always recommend you to express your viewpoints, questions related to this topic. We would highly recommend you, if you have any specific topic that you want to really learn, feel free to put in the chat window, and one of my colleagues, Sukrut or Kizer, they will try to attend that request. By default, all participants will be unmuted, and if you really want to ask any question, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself, and we will get into discussion. Okay. Again, I would again highly recommend to use a raise your hand feature so that we can go specific priority of the questions in the interest of again time. And then if you have any specific idea or thought process to learn from all of us, because everybody is doing a lot many things for the customers and for the individual learning, but everybody will have that unique learning pattern, right? That is where this community driven learning helps a lot. So I would highly recommend you to try to share your thought process in case if you really want to understand a future topic that we would like to address. In terms of our agenda today, we will start with the supplier communication agent. So I don't think so by now I would need to distinguish between what is Copilot and what is agents. Everybody is aware of that. What is the use of the agent and what does it mean by the Copilot? And therefore we will try to more focus on this very specific topic of supplier communication agent. We'll start with the overview, and we will also talk about the business processes, what we as a consultant typically configured and perform for our customers. I myself call it as is process, and we will see how that as is process is going to be enhance the experience for procurement personas as well as purchasing people within the organization with the help of agents. Then I would also request my colleague Sukrut, who will help us to run through a quick setup and the configuration process, although it is not the agenda of today's session because it requires good amount of the understanding of the technical artifacts, and there are a bunch of articles available published by Microsoft and a couple of my MVP friends as well. They also publish a nice detail about what needs to be enabled and what not to be enabled. However, we will quickly run through it so that if anyone has any questions, which environments to be utilized and how that environment, which app to be enabled, Sukrut will try to quickly run through with that process. Then we'll also dive deep into the configurations, what sort of configurations that you may need to enable in order to enable these supplier communication agents. And I'm pretty sure this will also give you kind of elevate your learning, as we always talk about before the recording also, right? That one of the learner did mention that they have a bunch of custom copilot agents they built. So with these agents, at least it will help them to enhance their custom Copilot agents as well in order to anything that the use cases to be increased or to be developed. Then we will also see a live transactions in the finance and operation app, assuming the fact the list of use cases that we have talked about, but keeping in mind although the transactions we are going to live, most of the times we have seen the responses that we get from AI, that is the agentic world that is happening, working in the background. Sometimes it delays the process, and we wanted to cover the topics in the 55 minutes and 60 minutes or so. So probably if that did not turn up correctly, we may need to go back to the transaction that we have already ran yesterday. But nevertheless, we will try to create the transaction first and see the actions, how the agent is acting upon it. Okay, and then towards the end, we will have the open discussions and Q&A. With that, I'll focus on the process. This is pretty much standard process, as you all are aware, and especially a supply chain consultants, and it is nothing new to them, right? But at least for setting up a ground and setting up a context for these agents, I thought having a as is process defined might help you to correlate connecting a dot with the agents, right? Because sky is the limit kind of a scenario nowadays, right? In the exploring world of agentic world of AI. So with the start with of the as is purchase order, probably we can also correlate with our current implementation that typically a PO sends to a vendor, whether it's an email or any other mechanism that is organizations already enable or enterprises are already enable, and there will be a follow process with the vendor, right, for the confirmation of that specific quantity, specific confirmation and delivery date, so on and so forth, right? So that's a trigger point for the users to start enabling the follow-up process with the vendor. It might be a sometimes time consuming if a enterprise or organizations, they are dealing with more than thousands of vendors, and there's a priority of vendors where they need to pay attention because that is where the next state of processes are going to be enabled. Once the vendor confirms the number of the quantities, the respective items, rather the material, as well as the delivery date and the confirmation date, we get a receive PO confirmation from vendor, right? Most of the organization, they have fully automated process with the help of API or file-based system, but still we would need the human touch, and that is where the manual updates is required as and when this information of either a PO change request comes from a vendor, or maybe a confirmation of the PO comes from a vendor, or any sort of thought process that the vendor is probably not allowing you to continue with the request for any reason, right? So that is where the manual update is required based on an email that we receive from a supplier, and then that follow process continues until the material receives to a specific location, and there is a delay of the purchase order, and but obvious my downstream process is also going to be impacted, and my next set of process also going to be highly impacted. So with that keeping in mind, the supplier communication agent is going to focus into two main broader area. One, as a result of this, it is going to help you to focus more on the purchasing team, those who are responsible for the activity of the procurement side of the story, and they can be more productive by enabling the supplier communication agents. What I mean by more productive, it means that they will allow agents to start acting on behalf of human, and then they can start focusing on talking to the suppliers and updating the purchase order automatically in the background with the help of agents. It is also going to help the personas where they can streamline the repetitive task rather than looking at my email which my vendor sent. Sometimes I miss the information that I received from, because most of the times it will be an unattended kind of a scenario for the organizations, right? So therefore, this sort of automation really helps, rather going to be help to the organization to more focusing and reduce the repetitive tasks. And but obviously, it is also going to improve the productivity and the cost efficiency benefit, if I put it into that theory of discussion, right? But then what if you have a supplier communication agents, and how that entire to be process look like? Okay, so if you just see these small icons of Copilot, that is where the agents of supplier communication agent is going to help. It start a journey with the PO sends to vendor. Instead of doing the manual follow-up with the vendor, whether he or she is going to give us the same amount of quantity that has been demanded, or is there any deviation to my confirmation date, so on and so forth. Agents in the background try to draft the email for me, right? In order to manage my, as a human, as my feeling, as my tone, everything is being managed by agents. As part of the supplier communication agents drafting an email or following with the vendors using this email, it does allow two capabilities. We will see in action, but just to give you a high level glimpse, one is it automatically draft the email, and it also allow you to automate that process. Okay, but the idea is to go with the approach of crawl, walk, and run in your production environment, or for that matter in your lower environment. Try to see what kind of information in order to that email that agent is generating, and then you can move on to the automation process. As soon as you reach to a receive PO confirmation, and if the vendor is ready to confirm that PO, based on the email responses, it automatically agent summarize the changes, and automatically it's confirm the order as well as the the differences. For an example, if you requested for 20 quantity, but the your vendor says I can give you only 5 quantities, right? So how that changes are going to be applied before the agent, it is going to be a manual task. We'll see in action how that agents really help you to automate that process and with the summarization of those changes. In order to the follow the delay purchase order, you can see you can automatically create a draft email by putting up a criteria. We will see what kind of a criteria that you can add, and then automatically that email can be scheduled unless and until you reach to that level. Agent will automatically start sending email to a vendor. Okay, so with that, I'll take a pause, and I would request my colleague Sukrut to share his screen and start and help us to understand our first agenda and first topic agenda, which is setup and the configuration and the live transaction of a follow-up vendor. And then he will hand it over back to me, and then I'll continue with the remaining use cases in detail. Over to you, Sukrut.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, my
Yeah,
voice
yes.
is not clear. My
Yes,
voice
you're
is
audible.
not good today, but I'll try my best. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay.
Yeah, it's visible.
So in term for setup and configuration, right? For this supply chain communication agent, we have a lot of setup in terms of technical, when I say setup, it's not a functional setup, but the technical setup on both data hours and F&O side. F&O side, I would say it is still a little less, but on supply on the data hour side, we have to perform a lot of configurations, especially if you want to use the update features from vendors, like when we send follow-up emails to vendors, and in return we get some updates from vendors saying, okay, we cannot supply. Suppose for a particular item we have a quantity of 50 in the purchase order, and vendor says we cannot supply 50 quantity, we can supply only 40 quantity of 40 instead of 50. Those kind of updates, if you want to do that kind of feature, then you will have to perform some shared mailbox or private mailboxes in Dataverse, and that is where the little bit configuration part in Dataverse is there. So we'll high level we'll show that what kind of setups are involved. If you want to go over in detail, I just pasted a link in the chat from Microsoft Learn, which you can utilize to follow those and steps and configure everything. So in F&O, first of all, in order to use supply chain communication agent, first you have to enable 3 features. First one is immersive home. Second one is, so let me search with word supplier. Let me go to all because I enabled most of them already in my environment. So you can see it's a production ready preview supplier communication agents. Another one is immersive home, and the third one is if you want to use production ready feature or send follow-up emails to vendor supplier communications agents, you can enable this feature as well. So these are the 3 features which you need to enable in F&O environments. And let's move to the data hour side now. On the data hour side, once you move to Power Platform Admin Center, you can pick your environments, and within your environments, you have to make sure you have Power Finance and Operations, a Copilot for Finance and Finance is installed, and another one is Copilot for supplier communication, Copilot for supply chain management, version 1.1.03071 or later is installed. And then if you want to use send follow-up emails functionality, uh, you have mailbox configured, right? And if you want to receive updates from vendor, mailbox configured. Now, how you can confirm that is you can visit make.powerapps.com. Once you log into make.powerapps.com, you can select your environment, which you want it to be enabled, and you can go to the solutions, right? In solutions, you can click on managed, and if you look over here in managed solutions, there are different solutions. You have to look for Copilot in supply chain management solutions. Now, once you click on these solutions, you can see there are a couple of agents over here, supplier communications agents, inbound and outbound, which are used for inbound and outbound communications with finance and operations. There are multiple cloud flows as a part of prerequisites. If you visit that link which I shared, you need to enable these cloud flows. And to enable these cloud flows, there are two ways. You can either enable it through PowerShell scripts, or Microsoft has provided you a Power App. You can click on this app, and if you run this app, you can see right now everything is going to be activated. You can see everything is going to be activated over here. But there are two, as I said, there are two ways to activate these Power Automate flows. First one is using PowerShell, and second one is using this Power App. So in order to do this, you have to create some connections in Dataverse, right? And you can do that using, again, when you select your environment, you can go to connections and you can make two new connections. One is to your data. One connection is to your Dataverse environment, and another one is to Microsoft Copilot Studio. Right. Once you make these connections, you can come to this Power App and select these connections over here from this drop down. As you can see, the connections are available here in the drop down. Once you select these connections in drop down, you can apply. And once you click apply, it takes a couple of minutes to activate these Power Automate flows. Once you refresh, you will see the status, everything is activated. And once these are activated, you are all set. There are more things which you need to configure. And one of them is if you want to use the features like um, update features, update when vendor sends an emails, you want to use those updates to happen from updates to be read from email. And if you want to process those from email, Copilot is going to read those emails and make you suggestions about those updates which are sent by vendors. Those updates might be related to the or quantities or anything else, right? Those for that you want to set up um, mailboxes in your Dataverse environment. For that, you can go to your Dataverse environment settings and emails. Within the emails, you have mailboxes, right? So in this mailboxes, you can click on over here in mailbox, and you can there are steps given in the Word document which I Learn document which I sent you. Over there, you can follow those and set up the mailbox. You can set up a private mailbox or shared mailbox. The steps are pretty straightforward, which are given in the Learn document. I'm not going to go through those for now because of time limitation. But once you can set up a mailbox um, uh, for that, and after that, you can um, uh, basically start using your agents for sending follow-up emails and then receiving emails in this mailbox, which is eventually Copilot is going to read those emails and suggested updates. So let's move to the finance and operations environment, and I'll go to the immersive home. So once you go to this home, you can see the agent activity over here on the right hand side, right? And you can see the agents which are available within your finance and operation environments. So I'm going to click view agents over here. Once I click to view agents, first thing we are going to see is this library of agents, right? So right now I have only two agents over here, which is the supply chain communication is for sending follow-up emails, and again supply chain communications agents for speeding up the updates in purchase orders from which from the vendor communication, right? So you can select those and activate those. I have already activated those over here, right? And you can see once those are activated, you can, while activating, you will going to see this screen. We will go to this screen once we see the demo, how this screen helps to identify the purchase orders to send the follow-up emails. So let's first look at the demo, and then we'll come back to this portion and I'll explain, what are all these things which are in blue. Okay. So let me go to once these features are enabled, right, you can view these features in procurement and sourcing module within finance and operations. So let me go to the procurement and sourcing module, and within here you can see the supplier communication agents. Okay, and there are two forms right now over here: preview follow-up emails and preview emails from vendors. So this form is going to suggest you to query the purchase orders which requires a follow-up based on the criteria, and the criteria which is we are going to set, we will see that after the demo. Okay, so for now I'm going to create a purchase order. a brand new purchase order in finance and operation, a simple purchase order. So I'll select my vendor, select site and warehouse. I'll just go with the quickly with the single item, which is item 1000. I'll just order quantity of 60. And save this. I'll change the confirmed receipt date for this order to be just, couple of days back, just to make sure, because I have query criteria configured in the agent, which I'll show you later, so that agent picks this order. Okay. So now when we go to these in procurement and sourcing module for follow-up emails, yeah, you can see these are some purchase orders which I already created, but you don't see this order over here right now. Okay, but I'm going to run this manually now from here, so that our purchase order automatically comes over here, and the agent is going to draft automatically. Agent is going to draft the email for that particular purchase order. Okay. So while the agent is working behind the scenes, I'll go back to these agent screens over here, and let's take a look at this criteria. So when you initially when you enable this feature and try to configure this agent, you're going to get this such a screen. Okay, so here basically we are setting up the agent to select any purchase order which is in draft state. Okay, draft an email for delayed purchase order. Now when you say delayed purchase order, or you can say unconfirmed purchase orders. Okay, so when you say delayed purchase orders, um, using using a particular fields, right? So you can select the fields on which fields you can set the criteria for to select the purchase order based on the fields, available fields. Those fields can be from purchase order lines or from the purchase order header, right? You can define different fields like deliver reminder, orderer, confirm receipt date, and you can select those fields like this and click OK over here. And then purchase order, you can select the criteria, which purchase orders, what is going to be the criteria to select those purchase order, right? So for in my criteria, I selected those deliver reminder is not set to 0. Confirm receipt date is between 60 days before today or 1 days before today, and where order is this particular user, right? You can add more criteria as well, and the fields are going to be available for you. You can select the different fields from lines over here based on for that criteria. Once you set your criteria, you can just say click OK, and your criteria is going to be there for selecting this purchase order. After that, you can select the email signature over here, and if you want to have AI disclaimer, because this is email is going to be AI generated, you can either select this. If you want to select this, append this in your signature saying that this email is AI generated email or not, right? So you can select that. So once these criteria are selected, you can save it, and your agent is going to be activated. Okay, and it's going to regenerate the emails if the emails are already generated, because I already have some emails already generated. So it's asking me that if the criteria is changed, do you want to regenerate those emails? I don't want to regenerate anything right now, but this is how you set up the criteria. So let me go back to the this follow-up emails, and let's see what happened over here. So now you can see for the purchase order which I created, you know, agent has already automatically drafted an email saying the purchase order has been delayed because the criteria says based on confirmed receipt date, we want to follow up with the vendor saying whether you want to confirm this order or not. And based on this, based on the criteria we have set up and the email we have set up, the agent has automatically created the draft email for that particular vendor saying, I'm writing to follow up on the status of particular purchase order, you know, kindly provide the status on this order. And it has listed the quantity of item for that particular purchase order, right? The deliver reminder is 60 because I created the order for quantity of 60 is that got inserted over here. And based on our setting, signature and AI generated email, the Copilot has drafted an email for us. So you can um, if you have properly email configured, email graph parameters configured for sending emails, you can directly send this email. You can change the email addresses over here, and you can send it from here as well. Right. So once I click send, I'm going to get receive. Vendor is going to receive this email. Right. So I think that's it for them for this demo. My voice is also not supporting, and I can't talk anymore. So I'll hand it over to Rakesh now for further demos.
Sorry, I have two
Yeah,
questions if you
yeah,
don't
I
mind
can
me
see
going
this
ahead.
too. Yeah, Vishnu, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, go ahead,
One thing
go
is,
ahead.
so let's say if a brand new purchase order is created, will
Uh,
it go as a follow-up email or will it go as an email for first confirmation? So,
if the purchase order is created, fresh purchase order, as
right,
long as it meets your criteria, it will go as a follow-up email because it really depends on the criteria which you're going to set, right? We don't want to set a criteria that for send a purchase order is created today and it's sent to suppose vendor today. Now you don't want to follow up immediately, right? You might have to wait for maybe based on vendors confirmation cadence, right? This particular vendor replies within 2 days for confirmation. Now if you
correct,
don't
correct.
receive this confirmation, you have a criteria which you can set. And let me go back to that agent configuration screen to show you. You can set this configuration for a specific vendor or for all vendors, right? So drop this for um sorry, 1 second. Draft an email for delayed purchase order or
Hmm.
unconfirmed purchase orders, right? So it really
Okay,
depends on your criteria. If you want to send it for delayed purchase order or unconfirmed purchase orders as well, right? You can do that.
okay, but the first confirmation is still manual, that means. The first confirmation is not automated.
Um, no, you can send it for unconfirmed purchase order for asking for confirmation as well, right?
Okay,
Yeah, here
okay.
based on this particular criteria. Also, here you can send it for purchase orders based on this criteria or to specific vendors as well. And you can, if I select vendor over here, right, then you can
Hmm.
select, when I select vendors,
Hmm.
right, there is a option you can select vendors as well. So I think I have to save this.
Okay. No, no problem. No problem. So I get an idea. You can do it for both, either only
Yeah,
for
you can do
delayed
it for
or
both.
for, yeah, this was the first thing I wanted to understand was whether it's only for delayed or is it even like, because what happens is like, I know clients where there are hundreds of purchase orders going every day and they have to manually go and click that
Correct.
confirm, confirm, confirm. If this can be automated, this is one good thing. The second thing the second thing I wanted to ask is on the other screen that you showed, you have to, it shows you a list of the alerts that or the agent is generating, but after which you're going and clicking on send, right? to trigger the email.
Oh yeah, the send portion is this particular send portion is right now for view only. I think Rakesh, if I'm not mistaken, you can automatically send as well, right? Through send follow-up
Yeah, yeah.
emails
So
functionality. Send follow-up emails functionality.
if you just go back to that workspace again, Sukrut, where we configure that, just go back to that procurement and sourcing module. I
Yeah.
understood your point, Visti. Go to the
Mhm.
procurement and sourcing module.
Yeah, this one. Yes.
Yeah, this one, right? So if you look at why this email arrived here in this workspace, because the way Sukrut has configured this email as a draft capability. So Sukrut, if you just click on
Okay.
the configure agent option, I would like to highlight that point to Visti. So you can see here, very first, just click on edit, drop down this and click on edit. Yeah, click on edit. Yeah. So you can see here, Visti, the first option that
Oh,
he has
okay.
set up as a draft. The moment he
Draft
changed from draft
automatically
to
send.
automatic
Automatically
email,
send.
then whatever the criteria, first criteria, delayed purchase order, or you want to set up unconfirmed purchase order, which the question that you asked, right? Then it will
Right.
automatically start sending email. But the recommendation from Microsoft as well as our learning also, you would like to always, should go with the draft first. And since it is a production ready preview, start with the draft first and then try to enable the setting from draft to automatically send, because
No,
it's an email, right? It is very
I-
difficult to keep a track, because how it recognize the email. For an example, if you are my vendor in my system, that is financial operation app, I'm creating your record as a vendor, right? And then I'm
correct.
attaching a contact. Against the contact, I'm adding your email address. So
Correct.
it is very important for us to avoid that confusion. Otherwise, what will happen? The email will start shooting out to a different vendor's email address, right? Because of the
Hmm.
wrongly configuration. So it is always advisable to go with the draft. But in order to address your question, anything and everything that you need for this follow vendor, this is a screen where you can configure everything, whether it's a tone, whether it's a field, whether it's a signature, or any specific criteria that you would like to enable it. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much. So I think I think as you know, similar when we make projects go live, we don't put
That's
auto
correct.
firming on planned orders. Similarly, initially we put this on draft and later we can go and update this to automatically send
Yeah.
when the business is seasoned with using it.
Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely right. Yeah.
can
And
we have,
business is comfortable, right? When business is
yeah, yeah,
comfortable, yeah, you can enable automatic sending.
correct. Subrata, just one more, sorry, I pronounce your name wrongly, but Sukrato,
No,
right?
that's
That's
fine. Sukrut, Sukrut.
Yeah,
Sukrut.
that's okay, Sukrut.
Sukrit, can you have two of these conditions configured, like one for delayed purchase orders and one for unconfirmed? So
Yeah,
for
yeah, you can.
unconfirmed, it
Yeah,
you
you
can do a
can.
double.
You can.
Okay,
You can.
cool,
Yeah, you
You
can.
can.
You can. So if you
cool.
just go back to the agent
Let me go
workspace,
back. Let me go back
yeah,
here. You can,
in
if
the
you want to
library,
select
yeah,
again,
you can add an
right?
admin as library. You
You
can add
can
additional.
say automatically send, or you can add
You can have a
unconfirmed
different
purchase orders
criteria as well.
and activate it from here, right?
No, no, you can
Here.
do two, right? Both
Yeah, you
delayed
can do
and
too.
unconfirmed. Okay,
Yeah, you can do. So
So
I
basically,
already
you
set
can
up for
you
delayed,
can
right?
do as
Now
many
I
as
can set up
criteria
unconfirmed
based on
here.
these two conditions. Yeah.
okay, cool. So that's great.
Okay. So
Thank you.
no problem. Let
No
me
problem.
share my screen, and then I will cover the next part of the portion. I think we already having close 30-35 minutes. Okay, so as Sukrut covered most of the area, right, in terms of the configuration, in terms of the setup, what I'm going to cover, I'll just go back to this, our agenda. So here in the live transaction, we covered one piece of the scenario, which is the follow-up vendors, right? Now I'll just go back here and I'll just quickly run through. If you really want to enhance, you can see the agent activity from your left-hand side workspace icon. You can also navigate from here as well. But there is a dedicated workspace and the module that has been created. One is for agents, where you can see all the agents, not only this agent, but also the other first-party agents like account reconciliation agents that you can see here. You can add additional library for additional scenario as well. As well as you can also go back and check the agent's activity more in detail. But in the context of today's demo, if I just heading over towards the procurement and sourcing, you will see all these options here, which is a follow-up email we just now Sukrut covered. I'm going to cover the next part of the portion, which is email from vendor, right? So if I just go back here, our presentation deck, probably would have noticed in the to be processed. We just talked about this one, right? Now, if you see here, agents now start reading the email, and then again, it is correlating with your one of the scenario, Visti, that what if I'm okay and my vendor is also okay to confirm my purchase order, right? And then allow me to have that confirmation automatically by just reading that information. So I'm going to cover three critical scenarios here with respect to the email from vendor feature of the supplier communication agent. First, I'm going to create the one purchase order, and that purchase order I'm going to create it against one of the vendor that I have configured for this agent. And the idea is to, I have required maybe for an example 10 quantity from my vendor, but somehow my vendor is not capable enough to provide the 10 quantity. Instead, he is going to provide me only a 5 quantity out of it, right? So back in days of without AI and the Copilot, it was pretty much phone call, email communication. So I'm going to cover that piece, how that agent will help here in order to understand the email context and start drafting that information for my next set of activity. Then second scenario where I'm going to more talk about whatever the quantity that I have requested to my vendor to provide, he's pretty much okay, and my vendor is okay to go with the confirmation. That also we will try to see how this email from vendors capability of this agent will help to read that email and try to understand, the confirmation process. Again, keeping the human in the loop, not just to automate everything without taking any consent of human. Third scenario where I'm imagining the fact that my vendor is not familiar with the email, however, he would like to stick to a PDF, right? And then he sent an email with an PDF, with an attachment of a PDF, and how these agents try to learn from that PDF and automatically provides a confirmation of that particular purchase order. And fourth scenario, we will see, right? Always we have seen, what if my AI is going to learn from my data, right? So there's a concept behind called as taught items. We will see that what that mean by taught item. I may or may not be able to cover the live transaction of that because I have seen yesterday that it took lot many time to reach to that level. And again, in the interest of time, but I have a scenario created. I'll show you what that mean by taught item. Okay. So first and foremost, I'll create a one purchase order. What I'm going to navigate you first to the accounts payable module. I'm going to navigate to the all vendors form. First, I want to just quickly walk you through the vendors. I'm going to select the typical famous vendor Acme Office Suppliers, which is I have set up with the proper email address and so on and so forth. And as mentioned by Sukrut, as he has configured his email a mailbox to agents to read that email content as well as the PDF files. Similarly, I have used my email address as a contact against my vendor. This is for again testing purpose, nothing to do with the production use cases. And then I'm navigating into the area of the purchase order module. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a one simple purchase order, keeping in mind my supplier is Acme Office Supplier. You may have your own supplier considering your setup, but I'm going to select with this 101 vendor as Acme Suppliers. Now I'm going to select item, which is again a famous item, Surface Pro 128 gigabyte. And I'm going to get automatic by default site and warehouse, and I'm going to change the quantity that I need, quantity of 20, maybe a unit price 500 of each. That becomes the the hundreds, thousands of total net amounts. Now, in the previous information, when that use cases the follow vendor purposefully for the recreation of scenario. Here the shipment date I'm expecting here, but in the previous case we saw the confirmed ship date was overdue, and then automatically agent tried to start processing that. So now I'm ready with this particular aspect of the purchase order. Idea is to my agent or automatically start reading my information. So as the next step, what I'll do, I'll go back and communicate to my vendors that look, this is what the PO that I'm looking for, this is what the item I need from you, and this is what the total quantity I'm looking for, and so on. So my confirmed ship date. Okay. Now with that, I'll go back here and I'll go back to again the procurement and sourcing module. Navigate to the email from vendors. So for that, these are the all existing, the purchase order that I have tried for a testing purpose. Right now, we will try to see our new purchase order, which is 201. So in this 201, what will happen? I will write an email using my another email account, and that email account represents my vendor email account, and that vendor will write an email to me against the email address that I have configured for this agent, and we'll see what that action is all about. Right now, we have total 5 email responses as part of my testing. As and when the batch initiates, we will see that our 201 purchase order will start appearing here. Okay. So I'll go back here. I'll use one of the existing email. I'm going to write the email here. I'm going to write my PO1 number. Let me just validate the PO number here. $201. And my vendor is saying, because now I'm wearing a hat of vendor, right? That we can't deliver the total quantity according to so and so item. We have requested for 20, and my vendor is happy to give me a 15 each as a unit of measure, and they're going to provide by so and so, delivery date. And this is a mailbox that I'm going to configure. I'm going to use any subject here. It doesn't matter, but just for a simplicity purpose, I just copy paste purchase order number and the specific number of the purchase order. As soon as I shoot out an email from my vendor mailbox, this is my vendor mailbox, it will start appearing here in my mailbox. This is my mailbox that I have configured for this agent. We'll wait for a minute. You can see here, I have received this email from my vendor mailboxes. Now for demo purpose, I haven't enabled the batch job. It runs on every 2 minutes recurrence, but in a real life world, it has been configured as a 1 hour of recurrence pattern, and that is what the recommended one. But again, I'll just try to change the setting here. We will wait for it, how that email reads automatically by the agents. Just quickly change the date just to trigger that batch job. We'll wait for it. It is executing. So what happens is behind the scenes, when you enable this batch job, either automatically or by changing a schedule time, behind the scenes it goes and activates the Power Automate flow, and then that Power Automate flow automatically send that information back with the help of agent. So let me just try to refresh this page. We'll wait for a second, and you will see this email start reading the information in this workspace of email from vendors. There you go. So you can see here the email that I received from my vendor, and based on the suggestion, it is start appearing in this workspace. It is also allowing me, let me just enable this feature of explain the agent suggestion. It is allowing me with the help of email again that I have received the email with a confirmed receipt date of this instead of the earlier one that I requested one. It is also allowing me to detail email structure. You can see here from where I received the email, what was the email content. As soon as I can see, if I'm okay with this, I can start applying the suggestions. If I'm not okay with this, then I can ignore it and it will start appearing the review email section, right? So instead of having a email communication outside the F&O, with this help of agents, we can automatically see that email summary and agents start reading that email and reading content also. Now, as a next step, I'll just go ahead and apply that suggestion, because in this scenario, I'm okay with it, because I initially demanded for 20 quantity, but my vendor is happy to provide me 15 quantity. So I would like to go with the 15 quantity because that is what needed the hour in my scenario, right? So I would like to proceed further, and then I have requested for it. So automatically, if I just go back to the purchase order, the purchase order will turn into the confirm status. Yeah, Visti, go ahead.
Sorry, Rakesh, for this question again, but
Yeah.
so in the practical scenario, if this happens and I needed 20, the vendor is saying I'll give you only 15. Now, in this case, sorry,
Yeah.
the business will get affected, right? Because we try to go by the JIT, just in time procurement and all that, and implementing all this. And if you're running a factory, or I mean, when you're running a manufacturing unit where your raw materials are very, very critical, then first of all, I don't think we can automate this part, because this part will have to be manually reviewed and done. Second thing is, if this you go and update the PO, that means there's again going to be a new requirement generated in the next MRP run, which may or may not be too late. But that's my concern, is how will that be
Yeah.
identified and actioned on then?
So I'll try to address your first question. So if you look at this, the holistic view is and what the era where the supplier were living and the organization were living before this agent. Had it been a case of this earlier, then someone from procurement team is to input the value and update the information of quantity and the confirmed ship date here by navigating to Dynamics area, right? And then go by one sub purchase order by purchase order. Now that process has been automated, keeping human in loop. As you mentioned that if the automation happens automatically confirmation, it's not like that. You probably would have noticed here, when I see this email, nowhere you'll see it is automatically confirming that purchase order with the quantity and the change that my vendor is requested. Therefore, I did mention earlier also and now also that keeping human in the loop. So as a procurement guy, I do have an ability here to apply that changes. I do have an ability to not to accept that changes and ignore that changes and communicate back to my vendor again. Okay. So in my view, it is trying to reduce the data entry operation of that procurement guy, keeping in mind
Understood.
that the decision is going to be taken care by human only. Okay. AI is not going to apply that in the context what you just mentioned, running a factory, right? So we cannot afford that sort of changes from my vendor. But in case if that happens, ignore the fact of the factory and the other scenario, it is going to drastically reduce the manual effort of that procurement guy in order to change the quantity and other area. Just kind of you automated the process.
Agreed. I mean, yes, it'll change this. It'll reduce the back order lines. It will maintaining the back order lines and all that will be reduced for sure. But only thing that I was thinking of is the impact on downstream, where based on the production plan, how do we handle this area? So understood.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go ahead.
So,
So that's the reason I
but
brought this up.
if you look, no, it's a very valid point. Weston, look at in today's situation also, even though you don't have these agents enabled, all these activities taken care by the respective personas by their own, thought processes, right? So even though there is a downstream impact, your factory is running and fully dependent on your raw material that you requested from your vendors, still they are going to get that communication outside the dynamics, right? So it is just I would say a little step ahead to automate that process. Okay.
Agreed.
And then process that activity so that if you look at here, the email also, right? It is just read the email content and automatically is captured. However, this is a first party agents and beginning in the new era. There are few specific fields that currently these agents read. For example, confirm receipt date, then the quantity, unit of measure, item, so on and so forth, right? Still, there is no ability for us as a partner and a consultant to, go into add those fields. Maybe tomorrow we'll get some sort of frameworks to extend it further. But right now it is very limited to the set of fields with what I just described just now.
Yeah, and it will
Okay.
always be in the purchase unit of measure, right? It is not something that the vendor will reply differently. For example,
Absolutely right. I think that is
No,
what the
vendor
idea
can.
of the thought item comes into, because for
Yeah,
you it
vendor
is
can reply
maybe
in
each
different.
can reply, right? They will have their own thought process, correct? Or they may have a different item number in their system, correct? So that's where this automation comes into picture. Although in this session, again, looking at a timeline, we are covering a scenario where everything is, perfect in both the scenario, both the cases, right? But there can be a scenario where you will have a complexity involves, like customer maintains the same item in a different thought process, different descriptions and item numbers, and different unit of measurement as well.
Yeah,
Therefore,
customer
this
can
thought
say
item,
instead of
yeah,
15 each, I will say 15 pieces.
correct, correct.
Right?
So if you see here, this yesterday when I was doing the testing of this, I ran this email multiple time against this one of the purchase order, and you can see here. The moment I start replying this, agents started acting upon these rules, right? If I just click on this review, it start thinking about, look, the field in the email called as delivery date, you want to map with this receive confirm date, and then you want to do a follow-up. So all these things you are going to be apply when you get this sort of thought process. The moment I apply these or the moment I save this, automatically my thought item is going to be automatically enabled, and then my next run. You can see here. So now automatically I accept this change. And whenever I'm going to receive this information in the email, if my customer mentions the date, my AI is going to, or agent is going to consider that as a confirmed received date. Similar scenario that you just mentioned, Visti, that I define each, but they might have different unit of measure in their system, right? So this is where
right.
this thought item, where agents is going to learn from the data what you're receiving an email from vendors. Okay.
Yes, sorry. Can I ask you one more question before you move forward?
Of course. Yeah, yeah, of course you can.
So let's say you have something called vendor item number, right? So I may be calling an item with a different number, and the
Yeah.
vendor knows it as a different number. So let's say I'm calling ABC001, the vendor calls it XYZ234. Now I
Hmm.
have that relation built into Dynamics on the purchase order. When I send, it's always my number that is
Hmm.
reflected on the purchase order number. On the
That's correct.
confirmation, you have the vendor item number that goes. Now, in this
Hmm.
Mhm.
situation, how will the system behave?
Yeah, in this situation, similarly, the scenario that I just talked about, the thought item, the
Uh huh.
first place, agents will read that email, agents will capture the data, here it is, and it will
Uh huh.
mention that you want to map that item to a specific item that looking for this PO. The moment you
Okay.
map that, it will reflect as a thought item. And next time onwards, whenever you get email from a vendor against that item, which is not as part of your F&O repository item, it will start mapping, like here, let's say email is a column of email date and in the purchase order receipt. So similarly, you see another record called that item number, and similarly it will map to this. So that's how it
Okay.
is. The thought item will come into picture
Mhm.
whenever
But
there is a discrepancy in the
all those capabilities are handled. That's the only thing I was wondering because these are common scenarios we
but
have in
but
day
having
to day.
having said so, the limitation comes into picture with a set of fields that has been enabled so far for these agents,
Hmm.
right? Tomorrow you may have a different fields, maybe your custom fields, or maybe the additional fields of a standards that needs to be enhanced further, and therefore that enhancing framework is not there yet. Okay,
No,
that is
that's
what the
fine.
point I'm trying to highlight.
That's fine. I mean, at least the basic ones we have that mappings.
Yeah, yeah, basic ones you can have it,
Yeah.
which I just talked about in the presentation deck also.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I, no problem. I can see we are already on top of the hour. So we just talked about the one particular thing that I sent an email. I'll just go back to the vendor sent item mailbox. Okay. Okay. And then I sent an email with a discrepancy of that quantity and so on and so forth. But what if I allow my vendor to start giving me email not just, the email text, but also maybe a kind of a attachment of a PDF. Okay. So I have just created a one word file. I'll just quickly modify this. You can see here, I just already configured this so and so item in the unit of major pieces, my supplier details, so and so forth, and I save as a PDF here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use the same particular purchase order, what we have generated. I think you already confirmed it, so it won't help. So I'm going to create another purchase order. Item number, quantity of 20, maybe with this. I need this week. I'll save this. This time, my vendor is going to write an email to me with the content of this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to write an email as a vendor to my mailbox, and I would request confirm the PO. What was that PO number? 202. And go back here, copy paste here. So what I'm requesting as a vendor, that we receive the PO 202 and we can deliver all the required quantity that we're looking for, which is 20 quantity. Kindly go ahead and confirm that PO at your end. So that is what the email context is all about, right? As soon as I send an email, I'll just try to open the mailbox, which is configured for agent to read. Here I have received the email. Okay, sorry, I missed one portion. Let me write another email. I forgot to attach the attachment. Was my mistake. I'll copy this. I'll remove this. Confirm the purchase order. I'm going to attach the PDF file like this. Upload it here. And then again, we'll come back here, try to refresh the mailbox here. This time we will receive the attachment from my vendor. There you go. There you go. So we receive the attachment now. And I'll go back to F&O now. I'll enable this batch job. Let me just quickly refresh it.
Rakesh, I think you missed the subject with the plan ID. I think it's 201 in your email. If you can check.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think it should read the email.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll
I
see.
think it
That
reads
can
the
be
email body.
another use case, Rupesh. We'll see.
Okay. Understood.
We'll see. Yeah, so I'm still here. So we should get two email because one was a mistake from my side without attachment. Second one would attach. We'll see that. Let me just refresh it again. Change the date. Sorry, I'm changing a lot, but this is not the case in a real life world. We are running against the time. Yeah, it's executing. Let me refresh. Okay, there you go. So this is 201. You can see here, it automatically start reading the, not just the email contents. If I just go back to the email, it has nothing, right? It has just the information of my confirm the purchase order and attach the attachment. It automatically start reading the purchase order number, and start giving me information. Yes. And if you see a little bit down, you will see that attachment as well, which I just forward. So irrespective of any content, or if you don't have any content, it automatically reads the PDF as well. The only point which we need to take into consideration, and that is also been highlighted by Microsoft team on Learn page as well. As we speak, this agent does support only PDF file, not the Word or the Excel that probably you would have received from your agent. If at all you really want to enable this agent in your customer production environment. Okay. I'll take a pause. I think these are the 2-3 scenarios. The third scenario that I mentioned was a very similar case where I can write an email stating that I want to have this everything to be done. Automatically, it will confirm the purchase order by applying suggestions and everything. I think we are overrun by 10 minutes. I'll stop sharing my screen. If anyone
I think
has any
Vikas has a
question.
question, Rakesh.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
Vikas.
multiple questions. I will just try to be quick.
I can.
So
Go ahead.
basically, these setups that we are doing, like Sukrut did or you did for those purchase orders and the email one, are those user specific or those are like global?
Very good question. So there are two aspects to it, Vikas. One, it is based on your mailboxes. Right now, Sukrut and I, we have configured our private mailboxes. It means anything and everything that is receiving to our mailboxes. But in a real life world, it will be a kind of unattended mailboxes. Sometimes we call it as public or a shared mailboxes, right? Where you can configure a dedicated email address, such as maybe supplier SCM agent, and that SCM agent, the app which Sukrut just tried to mention beginning of this session, right? Everything is going to be configured through a connections in Power Automate, Copilot Studio, and F&O using that supply chain or supply SCM agent that you want. So it is going to be managed through a specific activity. I would say a dedicated account who will monitor that entire process of agent.
Okay, I think you're talking about the email ID, email box, shared email box, which will be there.
And the respective thing, yeah.
Configuration also. Okay.
Your first question is about setup. If user specific, it's not user specific. You know, in the setup is going to be there are security roles mentioned in that article, learn article. Only those with those privileges, roles with those privileges should be able to set up this, and the setup is going to be global. It's not user specific. Okay. I forgot the name of those roles.
So if I just share my screen, and if I just go back to this workspace here, Vikas, you can see here I logged in, I myself as an admin, right, who deployed this environment, correct? Therefore, I can see this admin, but I also have another account which is SCM agent as a specific user, right? So with that also I can do that. So I will get ability as a user when I logged in, where I can create my agents and whatever the information that Visti also mentioned, right? Who will do what? How can I create as many as condition I want for a fall of vendor? Everything you can done for that specific.
So basically, Rakesh can do it for vendor 1 and Vikas can do it for vendor 2. And then
absolutely, because that is what a real life world, right? That many customers are managed the vendors based on a demographic information and the graph and geographical thing, right? We sometimes called as domestic vendors, sometimes we called as international vendors categories and all, right? That's how it is.
I sent a link. In that link, it is clearly mentioned permissions for users who can manage the agent configuration, right? So if you have purchasing manager or purchasing agent role, if a user has purchasing agent or purchasing manager role in finance and operation, you can maintain the agent configuration. So if Rakesh is a user of purchasing agent, he can maintain his own configuration. I'm a purchasing manager, I can maintain my own configurations, right?
So got it. Coming to the next question quickly. So if with respect to those emails, okay. So if we are having a happy path, so we will get that email done and it's all done. Let's say the vendor has done some typo. Okay, instead of PO001, he wrote PO00Z. So in that case, what will happen? So I saw in that email it was showing track to Dynamics, once that email was done. So in that case, what will happen? Will the user get notified that this email was not, like, no activity done for that email, or any logging being done for those things?
So first and foremost, if the vendor is misplaced something, and since you have configured that email account for this agent, anything and everything that is coming to that particular mailboxes, probably you would have noticed or not. See here, whatever, I mean, this is the email address that I configured for the agent, right? You can see
Right, right.
this kind of a tag of track to Dynamics 365, right? So even though my normal email are coming, those are also going to be configured or tagged as a track to Dynamics. This gets enabled when you enable the respective private or group mailboxes. So even though your vendor did some mistake as a spell check, it is going to be available in the mailboxes, and it is going to be available in this particular workspace that I just talked about. Okay, and then you as a human can take action on this. Coming back to your second question, you mentioned that if something is broke, the vendor has a wrong purchase order. I think we discussed what that is where the chart item will
Same
come
thing,
into
same.
picture, right? What
So
was the next
usually,
point?
what
Yeah,
happens, because if you see Rakesh's demo as well, whenever you are talking about any kind of purchase order, a vendor will reply on that email, right, to maintain the chain. So always the subject will remain intact. So Rakesh sent an email to some vendor that this purchase order of how many quantities is there, right? So vendor will reply on that email. So the subject remains same. So the context is very important, that is preserved, right, Rakesh? I believe the context, the AI understands that context from the mail chain. Okay,
but
so
even
even
though
if
there is
some,
spell check, it is going to be there in the workspace. That is what I'm trying to
so
highlight, because
if
it
you
is
see,
going to
yeah,
track with
if-
this particular tag.
yeah, and if you see Rakesh's email as well, nowhere he has mentioned the item ID. He has always called the item with the name. So the AI is intelligent enough to understand that what is the context and what is the item ID exactly I'm talking about, because a purchase order can have multiple lines, multiple items. So from the name of the item, it is able to understand, okay, we are talking about line number 1 or 2 or whatever.
Yeah, got it. But the thing, what I was trying to understand is, like, if it is PO00Z instead of PO001, then it might not show up in that window, draft window, because I think somewhere it is tracking the purchase ID. So it will get lost, right? That email will get lost.
You want to try this? I'm okay to try this. 201, right? So you just go back and check. So 202 is still not confirmed. So I'll take 202. I'll just copy this content. 202. Yeah, because what I'm going to change?
You make it 20X.
03 or something.
20X,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
And in the title also, sorry, in the subject also. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So email is
And
gone.
just one more thing, since in real time scenario, like, vendors are going to send to different users, right? And they are going to forward it to this
No,
shared
No,
email
no,
box.
no.
it is going to be shared. No, it is not going to be a different user. It is going to be
Acha.
shared.
I
Again,
thought
it
they
is
will.
there in the policy. No. Okay. So now
I
we
thought they will
received it
forward
in the
it
mail.
to the end users, will forward it to the shared email box.
No, it is shared mailbox is going to be configured and managed by this agent. So I'll just change the date just to trigger the batch.
Sorry, when you're saying the shared email box is going to be configured and managed by the agent, then the outgoing email for the confirmation should also be going to that shared email from that shared email box only, right? Otherwise, how will the vendor know on which email the email should come back? So that is a very important configuration that we have to do when we are sending the outgoing emails.
But in my view, it varies. It varies customers to customers based on their policy. So you can see here, now we have received 2 emails, right? One is 201, second one is 202. I'll just go back and check my email, sent item, 12th of October, and 12th of October, I guess this one. Yes. So it took or consider the first order 201. A quantity, because in case I mentioned 5 each, and the date for this is 12th of October, and as I mentioned, right, because it's a 20XX,
Yeah.
so it reads 201 as a first order.
Okay.
So it applies some intelligence, may or may not be that clever. If I go back here, look at here, it reads that information. See, purchase order not found. And if I just try
Yeah,
to see
perfect.
here,
Then this is correct, I think.
if I just click here, it says I cannot apply this because it's a valid purchase order. I can ignore it or apply change, but apply change probably will not help here. This is my email and this is XXX.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to check. Yeah, it's good that they are showing on there. They can follow, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
One more,
and like
one
if,
more scenario tested.
So that's
yeah,
what the
and
point of
even if,
learning, right?
even if
Yeah, because
this purchase order is, let's say, invoice, then too it will just show up and then give that warning in that case. So,
we'll do it in next session, Vikas, for you, sure.
yeah,
But
yeah. Thanks
I
a lot.
agree
Thanks
with
a lot.
you. I agree with you. This is what I mean, as I mentioned beginning of the session, right? Learning, right? It's a sky is the limit kind of a thing in the agents. Okay, so any more question? Oh, sorry, I'll go back to your question. Anything we left here? I
No, I
think
think
Kizar
most of them
has
are answered.
kind enough. I think he has addressed those. Yeah, thank you, Kizar. Okay, I think if there are no further questions, I think we can take a pause now. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining and taking the time out, that too in the weekend. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rakesh
Thank
and
you, everyone.
Sukrit.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Excellent presentation.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.